Okay, call the meeting to order. Start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. We'll start with,
She didn't come, join us, but she might not be able to.
Okay. All right, so we have a tenure to Sabrina DuPont. It's one we reviewed, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments, concerns? Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Really? There we go. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. Next, we'll go to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Anything you want pulled, anything you want to discuss? Comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, next is BOCES Spotlight. Just for your reading entertainment. Next, breaks my heart. By accepting the letter of resignation for purpose of retirement for Ashley Gregor. Do I have a motion?
Sadly, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
Free service.
We'll miss you, Ashley. All right, all in favor? Any against? Okay, next is retirement for Mark Labadie. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Good luck.
Yeah, enjoy.
Good
Thank you
luck
for
and
the
have fun.
service.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? So the next item is, the push out of New York State to regionalize or support regionalization. It's going to each of the, it's going to each of the districts. You can fill in their checklist, but quite honestly, I'm not sure why you fill out a checklist to say no. But our the recommendation from our lawyers was to make this a formal motion that we will not participate in regionalization planning process. Yeah, you see it. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? The first part, so next is the president, vice president report. Honestly, the thing that I wanted to talk about was sort of as a result of our workshop, but also where we are. We need to find a way to get everybody out and vote. We can't, we're basically getting the same people voting, a few hundred people in a place, I think, that has 6,000 some odd voters. And the problem is, it's not necessarily, I want them to come out and vote yes, of course, personally, that's what I want, but. What we need is, what is the voters, what are they thinking? I can't tell from 500 votes that are almost split equally, yes and no. What all of the tax, is it too expensive? Is it too risky? Is it, the district should be done away with? We can't figure that out. And right now, like I said, it's basically, within 20 or 30 votes, I think, it's a tie. So how are we going to get, more participation? How are we gonna interact with, get our flyers in the library, get our flyers in the deli, get our flyers at the bank, whatever. But how are we gonna do that? And I think that's what it's gonna come down to, is getting outside, maybe it's a Millbrook Businessmen's Association. Maybe it's, I don't know if they're considered part of our district, but the Cary Arboretum. However we have to do it, we need to really drive the participation in this. So one of the things, and the reason Margot's here, is we need to understand like what we are allowed to say. We can't walk around saying, hey, it's, vote yes, vote yes. However, we have to be careful, either we don't say enough or we say too much, even when we're trying this. So we've asked Margot to come and talk to us about that. So Margot, you wanna?
I also prepared a document in case you want to take home something.
Yeah.
And so if you want to pass it down. We can go through this together while I'm speaking. That's easier because it will give you some idea of what you can and can't do. And I'll start regardless, There was a case in 1986 called Phillips v. Mauer. In that case, the court said that it's appropriate to educate, inform, or promote voting on any issue as long as information is not provided at district expense to persuade voting pro or con. So you can't spend money trying to get voters to vote pro or con. You can't use district resources. You can't use channels of communication. Are you laughing at me, Cheryl?
No, I was asking.
Sorry. No.
You want to know this?
So, that's really the underlying issue. You can't, a matter of fact, there were years ago, there was I don't know if it was a referendum or a budget, but there was a commissioner's appeal out of Millbrook where the teachers were sitting in the teachers' own room, stuffing envelopes, I think it was the budget, that said, vote for the budget. And it was appealed by Mr. Doro. And the commissioner said, you can't use school district resources, even if you're a teacher, and this is where you're allowed to spend your time. It's still considered using district resources.
Now, as far as like informational packets and stuff like that, like if you're just educating,
That's your responsibility as a
Yes.
Board of
so you
Education
can't
and as a
ask for a
superintendent.
positive vote, but you can inform and ask for them
That's
to vote, just not which way.
right. You want them to exercise their privilege to vote, one way or another. They have to make up their mind how they're going to vote. But you want them to come out and vote because you want to have, more individuals in the community being involved and caring.
So in that specific example, had they been stuffing envelopes that said budget vote this date?
Then it would have been fine because would have not have extorted a pro-budget vote.
But if I wanted to go out and have signs made that vote yes on the budget,
As an individual paying for it yourself and not on school district property, you can do that. Yeah, that's why, if you look at some of these things, it's, here, the commissioner said it's your statutory obligation to present and publicize school budgets to maximize voter comprehension and participation. That's really what your responsibility is. And that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, people became apathetic when the 2% tax levy limit came into play, and people felt that it wouldn't make any difference because their taxes weren't gonna go up that much anyway.
I mean, we've had information sessions, what, 6 of them, I think? And
Same people
we've
come out.
we had one of them, we had one person. Another one, we had nobody. We had probably 10 at Upton Lake. Maybe 10 at the Unionville Firehouse. And then, so I mean, basically, we've had 20 or 30 people come out to hear what we're talking about.
And I think the thing, so one of the reasons, Margot, that we wanted you here is because I think we see a lot of information on social media. And a lot of misinformation, that's being shared on social media by community members. I'm not even sure where they get it from, but you know, it's out there. And once it's out there, some people take it, you know, as if it's gospel, right? And so, I think that there's an interest of informed taxpayers to also want to say, hey, you can find the accurate information here and put the link. So I think that's like really part of this question is, are they permitted to do that? And
Yes.
just so long as, and they say, and it's okay to say the vote is on this date at this time at this location, but you can't specifically say, come out and vote yes, come out and support. You can't say that. You can just
We
remind
can-
people.
You can as an individual.
Yeah, but
As
not
an
using,
Right.
not using school district resources.
Oh, right, but my own
Okay.
personal Facebook page, I could put on,
Yes,
yes,
you can, and you really need to say that you're speaking as an individual.
understood.
So if something's posted on Millbrook Moms, mostly Millbrook something, and one of us or some of us are like members of that group. And because this has come up and we've seen, you know, some, you know, like we used to, like the board, members of the board get paid a salary. Like, and, you know, so that just as an example, and, you know, can we speak, you know, as a member of the board, or can I, you know, like. How do you say that, like, I wanted to tell people we don't get paid a salary.
Well,
But
I
I'm
don't,
saying it as a board member because I know, because I'm a board member, but I also want to say, so I would just say like as an individual.
but
I
that's
want-
public information. I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying, I want to correct you. This is, you know, definitely misinformation. Board members in New York State do not get paid anything. We are volunteers.
And also, I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask, so, because I did just read that, you can attend, we can actively, individual members distinguishing ourselves as this is our personal view, we can actually actively campaign for or against a budget, things like that, without using the district resources. So if I wanted to go door to door to every house in Millbrook and give them a flyer that says, vote yes, I could do that.
No, well, I guess you could, but you also have to be aware that if you really are advocating to that extent, you're going to, and this doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. You're going to have a commissioner's appeal. So somebody is going to appeal that. And it just means you're going to have to go through the process of answering it and making the commissioner understand that you haven't done anything other than as an individual. You don't shed your rights as an individual when you become a board member.
Okay, if my husband or sister or somebody went and did it, that's completely
No
different.
problem.
If I was in the car driving and they went and did
No
that stuff,
problem.
okay.
Back to the social media question. If misinformation is out there, somebody says something, we can, as a board member, point them to a link with correct information and follow right up with.
As long as
a
the
resident,
information is factual and not subjective, yes.
Individual, I fully support this. You can say that. as
Yes,
individual.
exactly.
I think it's important just to know not to engage too far, and I know you.
Yes.
But it's very easy to be 26 comments in on social media.
Wow.
So it's more of just get the accurate information here, reach out to Caroline there. this is misinformation, whatever, just keep it simple and kind of move on.
And please see the information on the district website.
Now, the bullet that says to explain the effect of the defeated budget or proposition. How far can we go with that? I mean, we don't really know. I mean, do we disband the entire district and part Arlington and part the Weetabix?
We have to
I
be
mean-
careful of hyperbole and just be factual that they were, negative impact to programs may result in, long or short-term building closures if there's these, issues result in failure kind of thing.
Well, the
Right,
reason,
right.
one of the reasons you have a capital project to make sure that your buildings are up to date and in good shape is because you don't want to have an emergency that occurs and then you have to spend your money outright from the general fund as opposed to being able to bond it over a period of time and paying for it in a way that doesn't hurt the district or the taxpayers.
So we could come up with certain things that were allowed.
You should have like catchphrases that you can use.
Yeah, are you finished, Cory? I had.
Well, no, I was just, so where it says the district is permitted, that means we can say as a board, we're telling you this, right? Not individual, we don't have to do that individually.
Well, you can speak as a board, you just can't tell people to come out and vote yes.
Right, but where it says explain the effect of a defeated
Yes.
budget, we can do that.
Yes, as long, it should be factual, not subjective. What's happened to our buildings are going to continue to deteriorate. We're not gonna have modern spaces for some of the programs that we want our children to, it's just, talking about the buildings themselves, their condition and, what really needs to be repaired. And these are valid things, obviously. You don't want to have your roof leak to the point where it starts to grow mold and you can't have students in the building. There are all of these effects of poor conditions of buildings. I don't know how bad the conditions are, but I'm sure that it's been a while since there has been a major bond referendum here.
Can I ask, in reference to at a board meeting, because this has happened in the past, when somebody comes in from the public, and I know there's a public comments section, and there's rules and regulations as to what can be said back to that person, is there, a
Those are
way?
your board's rules and regulations by policy.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so, because I would like to throw out there, I don't know how to propose this, but if and when somebody does come in from the public, this has happened, and says, again, I would just, so-and-so is doing this, or this is happening, and it's misinformation, how, I just think that if we could somehow respond, because somebody did come in for, and made a comment, and a lot of the information was incorrect. And it like, I got upset because I would love for Perry, Caroline, Elliot, Dr. Amy, to be able to say, actually, so-and-so, that's not correct information, like, oh, you're letting kids jump off the roof. Well, actually, we're not, like, how, is that something that we have to do as a board to be able to respond to questions?
well, I think you should have certain designated individuals who should, can respond if something is patently incorrect or misinformation. A lot of boards of education do not respond to public comment because you don't want to get into a tit for tat. That's not what it's about. However, I think it's actually a responsibility if you know something is absolutely wrong to say, excuse me, after they're done. But that's incorrect. You've been given misinformation.
Or if there's like policy that they don't understand, like,
That's not what the policy says.
okay.
I don't think you want to get into a long-winded conversation with them,
Right.
but I think that if it's patently wrong, there's no harm saying that's wrong.
Yeah, I just think now, as Caroline was saying before, about like the misinformation that's out there, there's a lot of it. And if somebody is actually, as you could tell, we don't get a lot of people live at our board meetings, and if somebody would actually come in, to be able to say to them, actually, this is the truth, or that's not correct or something, I just think,
I don't know where you're getting your information, but it's wrong.
yeah. right now, there's just a lot of it out there, so,
After two votes,
Yeah.
it's just swirling, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah, okay.
The secondary students,
They have
can-
free speech rights.
they can do what they want or say what they want unless we've influenced them.
Right, we can't influence them. They can do this on their own. That's why this is actually very interesting to me. You can pay for ads in the newspaper, not with school district funds if you're going to, say something that's, pro or exhorting them to come out and vote for your proposition, for your bond referendum. It would have to be, but you can do letters to the editors, the unions can pay for ads, the unions can have phone banks, the unions can do whatever they want if they want to come and support the bond referendum. PTAs, PTOs, they can do what they want as well. They just can't use your resources if they're gonna say, come out and vote for the bond referendum.
And secondary students, that's excluding that's just non-elementary schools, right? That means.
Well, this had to do with a secondary student, so. In that appeal, yes. So, I mean, younger students probably don't have the wherewithal to, think about things like that. And, they don't have the school newspapers. Not
But
to
if-
the same
but if they want
extent.
to. Yeah, but like, I'm just thinking like the middle school, the kids,
Middle
had
school
a
is
delay
secondary,
because the
yes.
roof leaked and maybe they're like, you know what, I want to go out and try to get people to vote yes, so,
That's up to them.
okay.
But you
But
don't
they
want to
can't
be,
influenced by the board as.
or by the teachers, for example.
Right.
Also in the student opinions, says as long as we don't influence, they can use school district stuff, including funding for the club or a club,
Or the newspaper. But it has to be what they want. It can't be what you want or what the teachers want or what anybody else wants.
The last thing we want to do is be successful in the vote and have somebody contest it. So, but at the same point, from what we've experienced over these past couple of years, primarily since the first vote, it's just a lot of misinformation. So we're sitting there kind of can't do anything until Tuesday night pops up. And then the majority of the people that are on Facebook don't come or watch the board meeting. So it's, you lose the communication.
But if somebody receives the Facebook post, there's no reason it can't be responded to.
Okay.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
Sure.
all right?
You can't target voters. Which
What is-
means, yes,
What does distinguish their personal views from those of the board they represent?
that means that they have to say, I'm writing this as an individual citizen in the community.
Okay, but as long, even if I say that and the board is, behind this, that's not gonna, right?
Well, you're either speaking as an individual or you're speaking with the imprimatur of the board as on behalf of the Board of Education.
So it's one of the last bullets, says it's illegal to use certain persuasive words like smaller class sizes, the new computer labs and technology updates. So to Perry's point before, we're talking about it, those are the repercussions if we don't get it. It potentially could be, larger class sizes. We're not trying to persuade them saying the budget will get, smaller class sizes. We're saying these are the repercussions of larger class sizes if we can't get this stuff done or remote work or whatever. So I don't know if that's goes both ways or is that just,
That's how it's said.
okay. It's more persuasive, not more talking them out of it. It's more,
It's more like being factual.
Instead of like promising certain things.
right. Well, it's gotta be factual.
Saying that's going.
Your children are not going to get a wonderful education if this doesn't pass.
Right.
Well, and your
It's not
your
enough.
students may be going remote if we hit certain temperatures in the room where we have to send the kids home. It says it is illegal for a teacher association to post signs at an elementary school.
On school property.
Okay,
They can post signs in the community, they can pay for signs in the community. They can say vote yes on the proposition or the capital project. They can do whatever they want with their own money on their own time. And as long as it's not on school property. You know, they are often a very wonderful resource.
So it says we can't target certain groups of voters. We obviously have email distribution list for snows or whatever. Can we email that distribution list or is that considered targeting?
That would be targeting unless you send exactly the same information to everybody in the community.
Okay.
That's why you can't do robocalls from the school phones on election day or the day of the vote to say, come out and vote. But others can do it from other stations.
So can I ask a question on the fourth page, Margot? Sorry, my voice is a little. On the bottom bullet, it says the commissioner upheld as proper communication sent by the superintendent. So
That's
if
the
it,
Q and A one?
yeah,
Yes.
if it's a mass distribution and somebody would be available to sign up for mass distributions on the district.
That's what the commissioner said. That,
So
that,
that's-
as long, but you have to make that well known to the community.
Mhm.
So if we send in the mailer that we do every time, can we add to that? Please sign up for.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. If you want to be up to date and get correct, accurate information about this,
Yep.
bond referendum, please.
Anyone in the community.
Yes, and this is how you stay up to date, and you
Yes.
certainly can do that, and I think you would want to disseminate that far and wide.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, even, I don't know, it may be the village would send it out to their, constituents as well.
but if we're sending, and this is probably nitpicking, but if we're sending, emails that have all the facts in it and, that's not considered using school property, right? If we're using the schools,
As long as you're not telling people to come out and vote yes. In
Just
so
come
many
out.
words, as long as it's objective, it's factual. You're fine.
Similarly, in the bullet regarding to have a barbecue, athletic competition, book fair,
But that's always a big one.
say there's like a middle school concert coming, it says to distribute that to all district residents, so we invite everyone.
You invite, yes, you invite everyone in the community.
And do we have to indicate that there would be an informational session? Can it kind of be like a surprise and intermission, or is it just an invite?
Well, this isn't an informational session. Those are usually on election day.
Okay, so you can invite everyone in the district to the concert and then somewhere in there they come out and vote and not saying yes or no.
You don't even have to, it occurs, these are
It's
things
like
that
the
occur on the
ice
day of
cream
the.
social At Alden. We have the ice cream social at Alden on the same day as the budget vote, so it brings people to campus.
But you invite everybody, not just parents and students.
Does the ice cream social go?
Otherwise, it's targeting. You're targeting the people who you think might vote yes.
So if the PTO, MEF, myself, whoever, individuals wanted to post something on Facebook, hey, vote yes for the budget, I have extra signs if you want one, send me a message. It's fine?
As long as you're doing this as an individual.
But that's a question then, but could the PTO as an organization, which is not a district organization,
As long as you're not using
Could-
this.
right? Can they on their Facebook
They
site?
can do anything they want.
Right, okay.
Same with the
Same with the
Flyers.
unions,
Yes.
Same with
same
MEF,
with
right?
Booster Club, same with MEF,
As long
yes,
as it's not on the school.
absolutely.
property, Yeah.
They're school-related organizations, but they're not school
Yeah.
organizations. They're actually your wonderful resources, so.
Well, the main thing is to try to educate. And really. I mean, we started this journey, 2 years ago roughly, and we had a lot of huge ideas of, better teaching and learning and beautification projects and everything else. And right now we're down to the bare minimum. We're still having issues, which is
Not uncommon,
concerning.
maybe three's a charm.
Yeah.
so best thing, once we settle on, you know, I'm gonna do this, David's gonna do this, Chris is gonna do this. Here's the thing that we're gonna send out. Probably get all that reviewed by you.
Good idea. Probably the best way to get people to come out and listen to you is to feed them. I'm,
No, it's true.
that's just.
No, I'm agree.
Yeah, no, you're in New York City all the time.
Pancake breakfast. You know, learn about the capital project.
Like, we can't, oh, if it's neutral, we can.
It doesn't have
It's
to
on
be
school
elaborate,
grounds, it's just factual.
yes.
Right, and then we can say factually, the vote takes place at this place, this time.
Right.
In the middle school.
Please vote.
Auditorium.
Yeah.
Please come out to vote.
Yes, we're hoping everybody comes out to vote.
Yep.
Because that shows you that they care about the schools.
School employees may not attend private partisan meetings during work.
During work hours, yes. And even if you make a mistake, that doesn't mean that the commissioner will overturn a vote. It's a very high threshold. You have to have so many errors that it vitiates the process.
And, does somebody have to bring it to the commissioner?
Yes,
Okay.
disgruntled person in the community, usually somebody who's a naysayer.
We have a couple of,
I'm just kidding.
We know that.
But it's a high threshold, so just because you've made a mistake. And mistakes do happen. Sometimes it happens with a notice, sometimes it happens with what comes out of somebody's mouth. You'd have to show not only that there was a mistake, but also that it affected the outcome. And that's pretty high standard.
Cheryl, what was our, the total number of people that came out to vote this last time, around 600, or was it less than that? 3?
It was under 3.
Okay, so that's around a 5%,
That night.
right? About a 5%.
Hold on, Caroline's gonna pull up
Okay.
the true numbers.
And more came out to vote during the annual meeting. That's not uncommon
Yeah.
either.
The vote numbers in May. May was 386 yes to 274 no, so that was May.
Opposite.
Can you say that again?
386
Six.
yes, 274 no.
That would be the opposite. 386 no.
No, that was the general fund budget.
Oh, of the
Yeah.
budget, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so that was the total who came out to vote, and
Around
then
600.
in November, Prop one was 242 yes and 287 no.
Okay. It's that much.
So, I mean, I know I feel like that's really low, but that's about a 5% voter turnout, right? We have 6,000
Yeah. I mean,
people,
in
but
the past, like when they were voting on the high school, they had, you
sure,
know, thousands of people.
yeah, I just.
Voting? Thousands?
Yeah, I
Really?
think we have, like-
Well, I just,
6,000 maybe.
in any general election, Margot, whether it's local or
registered
national,
voters that we have.
I think we have. about
do you know what the
6,000.
average
Yeah.
voter I mean, it's not as high as people think. I mean,
No, and it really varies considerably from
Right.
district to district.
I think in general, a 25% voter turnout is
Oh, that's
considered
huge.
high, right?
That
So we
definitely-
shouldn't, I mean, yes, we want as many people as possible, but,
But you want more than 5%.
oh, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 6,000 registered voters in the district. We just have to, and maybe, you know, 5,000 of them are dead set against us,
Well,
you know,
Well, you gotta remember too, during
Also-
COVID, we only got about 1,200 votes,
And that's with.
When
sending out the
everybody got it,
ballots, Right,
so.
which is actually, but that's substantially higher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they didn't know
But
they have to do
I know
anything.
that, and Cheryl asked me the question, and you can't do that anymore because
Right.
that was only for that one particular vote, the annual
Right.
meeting.
But we can educate them on how to do it if they need to.
Yes, and the best way to do that is to encourage them to vote by early mail ballot if they don't want to come out.
Right.
What about, students who are away at college that are?
You can do absentee.
They're over 18.
They don't need absentee, they can do early mail.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why the early mail ballots and absentee ballots are virtually the same, except that with absentee ballots, you have to give a reason. With early mail ballots, you don't.
It's just, okay. And is that, I'm just thinking of like how
To
to,
notify their parents.
right, how to get that going, you know, like a lot of these kids are at college and if their parents are not out voting because maybe they don't have kids in the district. However, these kids maybe just graduated, so maybe they would vote yes because they just graduated school and they don't want to see the
Well,
school.
if you know where they're going to college, maybe you send them the newsletter.
Very helpful.
And this will at least let you, and if you have other questions, you know. I mean, there are hundreds of issues decisions. over the years.
Hopefully we can get down like our strategy and then put together our communications. You know, we're gonna go talk to this, and this, we're gonna put out a communication that looks like this, we're gonna put this in the deli, in the bank or whatever.
The library
Yeah.
and,
And then, once we have all that written down, make sure that you go through it and, you know, if there's any extra notes, like. Just make sure you specifically say, this is my individual opinion or whatever.
right, well, one is an individual communication and the other one is the communication as a board or board member. But there are lots of things you can say. Most important is please come out and vote.
Well, that's the thing, you know, the fact that we only have 5% of the people actually vote. We have no idea why they're voting no. You know, I mean, I can, you know, make some assumptions, but. I'm amazed that, even if the overwhelming feeling is no. You would expect a lot more.
And that's usually the case. I mean, usually they'll come out and tell you why. They'll come to board meetings, they'll express their displeasure, I guess that's not been happening.
Yeah.
They just vote no. In the community, they spread
Very
misinformation.
Probably the most activity we had was one person, didn't ask any questions, wasn't really they were filming one of our information sessions. Where that went, who knows?
Well, I bet that was to see if there was something on there that they could appeal if it passed.
I think a lot of it is the history of the district, old
Yes.
administrations, old boards. And, you know, we invite you to come and get to know us. I mean, most of the people in this room probably haven't been even, you know, in our positions for more than 4 or 5 years. So, you know, this is what we were handed and this is what we're trying to fix. So,
Change takes time. You don't have a lot of it.
no,
Not a ton.
it's negative.
These keyword phrases. That we're not supposed to, it's illegal to use them. Is that like a complete list or
No, it's not a complete list.
we
It's
have to
examples.
basically?
The more objective and less subjective, the safer you are.
I mean, the logic is, after we spend how much time explaining the scope of the project, the reason for the project, this is why we need to do this, and then say, come out and vote, it would be inferred, that we would be hoping that people would be supporting it, right? So I think that's the piece. The more the messaging is truthful and supportive of the initiative, we don't necessarily have to say, come vote yes, it's implied in this.
Well, you can't anyway.
They know that.
Right, but I'm saying we wouldn't necessarily.
But I think it's come out and vote because, you know, whatever your opinion, however you're gonna vote, please come out and vote.
Right.
I do have one last question, yes. It may be in here. I know we can't write letters for publication in newspapers, could we, as an
You
individual?
can, yes, you can.
As an individual, could we invite a reporter that we know to attend an informational meeting?
Sure.
I don't even think the district could do that if they wanted to, right?
Right, why not?
No, she-
Right,
she
it's just
can't.
information.
No, I
It's
just
not-
mean like the
The
district.
district probably could the district even type up something to be submitted to a paper
You can-
as getting
We can't
information
pay
out?
for it, right?
You can't pay for it
Can't pay for it.
unless it's really factual.
Right.
You know, but you can
Can we
submit it,
jump
you can ask them to write an article about the capital project.
Mhm.
They may or may not decide to do it,
Right.
but there's no harm in asking for something like that, because you want to set the record straight and you want to, you know, answer the misinformation that's swirling around the community.
Anything else?
To Jen's point earlier about public comment, our policy specifically calls out that we can correct any inaccurate information. It's said as part of public comment.
And I think it's a very good idea to do it when it happens rather than after the fact. It's much more powerful.
All right, anything else for Margo? Very good. Thank you, Margo.
Thank you,
Nice
Margo.
to see everyone. Happy New
Happy New
Year.
Year. Happy New Year.
You'll be hearing from.
Wind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
bundle up.
I know, be careful.
Thank you.
All right.
Night, Margo.
Say. All right.
Barry, can I ask you a question before you move on?
Sure.
So part of your report was talking about like how to get more voter participation. And are we gonna go into specifics about that?
Tonight,
Yeah, tonight with that, or,
I think we should. I think we should agree on a. Structure, a subcommittee, whatever you wanna call it, to write this stuff up. You know, sort of put a plan in place and then write up. The mailings that we wanna send out. I mean, I don't think we have to, this subcommittee needs to do it. Like, I'm not even sure that would be a subcommittee, but. Needs to do it at the board meeting, but we need to do this. Pretty quickly, right? What's the date,
Well, May 20th is our vote,
right?
so you would need to, I mean, I would think that you would want to create your subcommittee tonight.
Mhm.
So that they can start meeting, because you're gonna vote on, the board is gonna vote on the budget on April 22nd. So you want to be able to,
Right,
you know, you have to have everything together.
so that's the real date that.
That's,
April.
well, that's the date that you're gonna vote on what you're putting forward to the public.
Okay.
And then for the capital project, you guys are gonna decide how you're moving forward with the capital project. You need to do that really quickly because that is actually a March date, correct?
Well,
February.
the scope needs to be defined so that we can prepare the life, so. For the board to adopt the referendum, in order to have the vote, we have to have the scope and budget defined previously, so we're giving ourselves a month for our vendor partners to do that legwork based on the board's decision.
Well, they can be done separately too, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
they can, but you want it, so I guess my point is, Barry, you really want to get that committee going
yeah.
so that you can start feeding out whatever that information is gonna be as soon as possible.
And then we need the budget and the impact statements, we need those. Because of course, we're gonna wanna put those in the communications. Right, if there's been any change to the budget, if there's been any change to interest rates, whatever might impact, but we're gonna wanna get that done. And then send out this,
The budget information, I would think that you would do separately because we have to follow a timeline, a legal timeline on, when we send that information out. to the public. So,
And what is that date?
so that's, we send that mailing has to go out 7 days before. And we have to mail it 6 days before the actual vote.
Okay.
But you want this information to get your voter participation, you're gonna wanna start sending those messages quickly,
Now,
so that you
again,
can
we
keep up
can,
that
we can
interaction.
send out informational stuff.
Mhm.
We just can't send out, oh, yes.
Yep,
And we do send out informational stuff, those are our bulletins and whatnot.
yeah.
Board has to adopt a resolution by mid-March, so
Right.
we're planning for that first March meeting in the event that we have a weather event that delays that meeting for any reason.
And that meeting is to basically say, here's how we're gonna put it out and how much.
Right,
For
so
the
the board
bond
has to adopt the
resolution,
resolution language with the general scope of work and the not to exceed budget authorization.
Okay.
The tax impact and all of that, those are great informational numbers, but not required. The requirement by law, if you remember the last couple times we did this, is the dollar figure. The board is asking the community to authorize X dollars worth of work in this general sense of terms at the May 20th vote. So that's that mid-March resolution.
Okay. So now the key part. Who wants to run this subcommittee? I think-
Be on it. You need someone who's smarter than you. I would do so. Cause I'm just thinking as far as like getting this, we're gonna we're gonna ask the or the PTO could be like all the things that we wanna do, whether it's buying signs or, asking the mayor or whatever it is, getting all of that chunk of list of stuff together to then go forward. Like all the things that you just mentioned, Millbrook business, like all of these things to brainstorm about that. I think that needs to happen. And then eventually, we will figure out like what we're gonna put on signs or what we're gonna ask for, or,
I
but
think we
also,
necessarily need to appoint a leader. I think we can just say who'd be interested in participating in the meetings.
I'll
That works.
participate and we will all lead.
We'll spread the work. How many people do want to?
Yeah,
Can we
can
can
it
have
be-
all that?
can we have three?
Board members.
Three board members.
Can you
We
have,
can have 3 board members and Caroline has nothing to do, so Caroline,
That's right.
Elliot,
I'll live for this.
Cheryl.
but does that mean you could have a community member? No, it's. this
Yes.
is-
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Well, just be careful on how you get that community member according to these.
yeah.
That's all.
What do we have? Did we get 3? You're good?
Well, do one of you guys,
I actually,
I'll
I
step
actually
out.
think the three of you make sense, because I think there should be not a ton of overlap between the business
Yeah.
facilities committee.
Oh,
That
probably.
way,
Oh, that's a good.
Okay, well, unless one of you guys want, I will step back if one of you guys wanna do it, like, I'd rather have
Yeah, I think it's like
engineers mind.
this.
Maybe,
So we're with, right now we have Jen
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Chris
which I
Lavelle.
don't have.
Yeah.
If you guys do, I would say you guys do it, and I will do the like,
You have somebody, your team on it?
oh, yeah, very good at it.
No, we'll do it.
Harry,
Hmm?
do you want to like right now ask like if you want the public involved? Do you want to put that out there or you're not?
I mean, I don't know how to.
You can say if anybody's interested in.
If anyone that's listening on the phone is interested in joining the subcommittee, please reach out. Reach out to the superintendent's office.
Easy enough.
All right,
We're direct extension.
Go down. wait for
I
the
don't
phone.
mind being on your team if you'd like.
Thank you.
Not sure if I'm allowed to do that, but I'm willing.
We would love to.
What's something about teacher association?
Yeah. The first thing we'll do as a committee is review this.
Okay,
So we
Right.
can and can't.
yeah. So
Yeah,
what I
say we
would
could
throw out there
send
though is
email.
that my next like 2 months with work are like, I'm traveling a great deal. If I find I can't do it.
This way, you can get
We're never gonna
substitutes,
let
we
you
just
go.
can't have more than
Yes,
three.
okay, good. That's what I was
If
gonna
you can't
ask.
make it,
That's
all
what I was
us
gonna
will be
ask.
there at the
I
meeting,
have a lot of travel coming up.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good, okay.
that's fine.
We can even break this up between, like, if you're worried about following rules, we could probably do pieces of policy committee meetings.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm just saying, we need to break the workload up.
Yeah,
And we actually should schedule a policy committee.
hopefully we can outline, here's what we need to do, and just probably tag dates on it by when. And then we can start filling in the information, like, come out and vote. But where's the one where it says you can talk about the impacts, but it has to be factual. So, there's stuff that honestly, if we don't get this budget through, we're gonna have to look at buildings and class size and all the set of stuff that we don't want to.
And put all that, also, I think too, that, if everyone, I guess even on the board, since we all live in the district, make sure we have the factual, like, I ran into somebody who said, oh, you know what, they just did the roof, 10 years ago or something. I'm sitting here going, I don't know how to answer that, because I don't know. And it turns out maybe they did like a little section of something or other, even if we could.
No, they did a section of the whole.
Yeah.
Right, so maybe that was it.
No,
This
that's a good
person,
point, though, Jen.
what, if there's factual things that we could say, like.
Yeah.
The middle school roof had this thing fixed on it once, but that's all, like the factual.
Insurance policy ran out, like this.
Right, all of this stuff, get all of that on a sheet, so if, say I do choose to go door to door and someone asks me a question, I need to be able to answer it, or if I'm out advocating for it. We need to be as informed as possible, I can't call Elliot
And
every
so
single
I
time, even
think-
though I do.
Yeah, and I think that we need to put a fact sheet like that on our website, because I think we have to be very careful of the information that you have as a board member that you're using as an individual,
Yeah, I
because,
Can,
Okay.
if we don't know information, can we sort of be like Q&A ambassadors where we can feed it back to you? We can have
100%, and we can add
Q&A
it to the
going,
Q&A, absolutely.
And that way, if somebody asks a question, we can go,
Yes,
so we'll feed that back and we can add it to the FAQ and you can look it up.
Yeah.
Or we'll send you a link as soon as we know it's posted.
And we should be able to even say in this communication, there's 6,000 voters, only 500 came out to vote. And it leaves us, confused as to what's the next step. Or, that's not right, but what I mean, like, make sure they understand. We're not just throwing this out there, we want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, and there's a quick link on our website called Budget Capital Project Info. So you can always return them to that page. And it'll be updated throughout this process, so some of this is like last year's information for the budget. And some of it is the capital project presentations that we've done, but as we go through the next few months, it'll all be updated, so.
Updating. like, February.
Yeah, we start now, soon. That'll be for the.
Okay. Anything else?
Did we leave? I haven't looked. Is the capital project information still there from last time?
Yeah, that's on page.
It's still active? Okay. Maybe we should put something that updates coming or something onto it, just so they know if there's numbers involved in it, they could change.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right. Did you have anything, Chris? Caroline, Elliot,
Yeah, so, we're going over the report from the, engineers and architects who came to look at the middle school roof,
okay,
to share that information publicly.
So. Just a couple of notes before we get deeper into the capital stuff. We are in deep into our budget prep for the general fund budget for 25-26. We'll start our formal presentations with the February board meetings with the slide decks and the charts and all of that, but we wanted to give the board just kind of some general notes on budget building as we've gone through the process so far. We're still collecting our expense data. So what that means is, you know, we're just getting in the rates for our health insurance, for our BOCES services, for those big ticket items. And I wanted to share with you today just the ones that we're aware of and where we stand. So right now, our health insurance consortium, DHIC, is projecting an 8.4% increase. For us, that's roughly $571,000. Okay, as a point of reference, you'll see in my report, 1% of the current year's budget is $345,000. So that means, you know, and I hate using the term 2% tax cap, because it's not truly a 2% cap, but that is the basis of the formula. We're projecting that more than half of our budget increase is going to go towards strictly just the health insurance. So looking at the numbers as they are, we're looking at a health, at a budget to budget increase expense wise in our first draft of roughly $1.7 million. 27% of that would go directly to employee benefits. So again, we're trying to be very conservative with our projections of expenses. The lion's share of our expenses are going to increase beyond our control, and so we're only going to be able to really contract roughly 20% of our general fund budget in that anything remotely resembling discretionary realm, in order to keep us under the tax cap. But some of these numbers are a little bit concerning. To just be upfront with the board and let you know, the biggest cost driver thus far is going to be our employee benefit costs. So as we get into the month of February, we'll start with our expense projections. We'll follow up with another presentation outlining our revenue expectations. Hopefully by then our state aid projections will come in. Again, we're hoping that will be held harmless, and that just means we'll get as much money from the state next year as we're getting this year. But that's not a foregone conclusion. So we're going to hope for the best. And hopefully by the second board meeting of February, we'll have a realistic figure of what we can expect from the tax levy and from the state, which are our two biggest revenue generators, to offset those expenses. And as we get into March, at the first March meeting, we're going to hopefully, again, this is all tentative based on the information that comes in, but we'd like to have a more finalized budget package for the board that would include updated expenses, revenue projections, and then the contingency budget that nobody really likes to look at, but that's the, should we have a failed general fund vote, we have to present the board with the contingency budget of what is required to be removed and what we would elect to remove as available. And sometimes there's still a gap, and if there is a gap, we'll identify it to the board and we'll open up discussions for what else could have to be reduced in order to get us underneath that required number.
But that, what you're talking about is our operating budget.
Correct.
Correct, that's our general fund year-to-year annual budget. Okay, just a couple of other notes from the operations team. Our E-rate application was put in, so, you know, as we keep, this whole night's been talking about money and the things that we need money for. We have $139,000 in E-rate funding available from the federal government, so we put in an application for just under $140,000 worth of upgrades. Those are going to be allocated largely to our wireless internet infrastructure. A lot of that equipment and a lot of those devices were installed in 2019. They have a 7-year expected lifespan, so we're just about at the end of that 7 years. And as a reminder, that got us through COVID. Having our buildings wired for Wi-Fi a year and a half before the COVID pandemic really helped us get out of that curve with remote learning and wireless devices. So it's just, before you know it, it's time to upgrade the whole system. And so we're going to be leaning on a lot of federal aid to do that, so that we don't have to take the hit on the operations budget.
Well, the thing we all have to keep in mind is, and I hate to say it, but going remote is a real possibility. Not, hopefully not for months, but days at least, when, you know, if we have a snowstorm and we lose part of this building, we have a room that are too hot, we have to send the kids home. I don't know, is there a too cool or too cold?
There is,
65
there always
degrees,
has
55,
been.
yeah.
Burner.
65.
So, you know,
If
if
it's
that, if
60.
right, if the burner goes or the air conditioning unit goes, or, you know, if the windows are leaking like sieves.
Yeah,
That we have
so
to
that's
send home.
always been, but the maximum temperature is what was new with this bill that was just signed.
So that, the other one was just this is
Yeah,
how it's
that's
always
public
been.
facility.
You know, there's always been a state minimum for, classroom
Temperature.
instructional
Yep.
spaces. So the next two pages of my report kind of bleed together. This is the facilities and capital discussion. So as Carolyn, we wanted to share the results of the December 27th roof inspection. At our last board meeting, we had a pretty in-depth discussion on the condition of this roof. Previously, we've shared in public information sessions, those charts that show all the red when we did a thermal and moisture scan of the 3 levels of this building. Millbrook Middle School, for those that are watching at home. And 85% of that roof was deemed to have some sort of water infiltration or intrusion at the time. So our architects and engineers at the board's behest came in over the winter recess on December 27th. We had Joe Reddick from BBS, who personally did core sampling and assessments with a structural engineer that they retained as a subcontractor. The Palumbo group joined us as well. The Palumbo group joined us as well. And we're on site to go through, and Mr. Mullins and I went through with our maintenance team and took samples throughout the building. What we found, and I'm just throw some pictures up for your review, is these are some of the samples that were taken. So our architects and engineers shared with us that upon assessment, they found that roughly I'm sorry, Cheryl, can you give me sharing link so I can
No,
figure this out? That's fine. Just give me 1 second to get this on screen for you folks, but I'll explain. We have 4 different types of a roof deck on this building. And as I think, Jen, you said earlier, wasn't some of the roof done before? Well, this roof was built in 4 different styles, and some of it has been updated at different times. But what we're dealing with is a steel deck on the 3rd floor, the upper level. For most of that level, there's steel underneath the roof membrane. That's in the best condition, and there are still leaks up there. The membrane itself has to be replaced, but that is in the best condition structurally. There's also poured tectum and gypsum, which function very similar to plaster. They put a steel metal mesh on top of the building. They have an insulation layer underneath it to hold the mesh, and then they pour the gypsum or the tectum into it. It hardens, and then they lay the roofing material, the impervious membranes on top. And when those membranes are no longer impervious, moisture then gets into the tectum and the gypsum. What we were experiencing, unbeknownst to us at the time, was that the gypsum was becoming impregnated with moisture. And as the gypsum was becoming saturated, it was swelling and deteriorating. And so when we looked up from underneath, and as you walk down the halls, you'll see, and I'm going to show you some pictures to illustrate from Mr. Reddick's report, is, so if you see this here, I'm gonna use my mouse there. That brown, that's the insulation layer that they pour the stuff on top of, okay? And you can see the metal here, that's the wire mesh that reinforces in both of these pictures. Now the white part, that's the gypsum. And that gypsum was crumbling as soon as we cut the insulation layer out to take a core sample, which means it's no longer structurally rigid, okay? The good news is everything that we opened, we had tested by our health and safety inspector from BOCES, and the report came in this morning that everything tested negative for hazmat. So there's no asbestos in anything that we disrupted during the sampling. That's the good news. Doesn't mean it's not anywhere, it just means it's not anywhere that we touched. But a lot of the areas that were sustaining major leaks in this building had this insulation material that started to bow from the weight of the impregnated gypsum and the moisture therein, pushing down on that deck. And so there's been a number of areas where you can see Mr. Reddick would take the insulation away and it would just start to crumble and fall. That gypsum is no longer structurally sound.
Do they still use that?
That style of construction it is still used in some places. I don't know that they would recommend it for this application.
Okay.
Corrugated steel, which is what we have on the 3rd floor, probably the strongest and best long-term solution. It's also one of the most expensive. So with all of these things in terms of design, we're going to have to weigh durability and strength and rigidity with cost, unfortunately. So, you know, you have the really good 15-year option or the great 30-year option. But I don't know that we can swing the 30, right? So we'll have to get it. But I wanted you to see there's foam board underneath. So a lot of this whole exercise really helped us understand what we're seeing. because some of it was visually daunting, some of it was, disconcerting for many reasons. But I wanted to share with you, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit because this goes into a more of a landscape portrait, but what you're gonna see are the 3 levels of this building. And again, actually, I'm gonna zoom in 1 second because this was the original moisture report. See this area here? All the red areas, that's a little snapshot of the building. That was when we did the moisture scan from the roofing company. Everything that's red shaded meant there was moisture penetrating the roofing membrane. So the middle level where we are right now, the lion's share of this level has been, has sustained moisture damage, okay? And most of the lower level where the auditorium, cafeteria, and kitchen are. And again, as a reminder, this kitchen services the entire district. This is our central kitchen for the district. So Mr. Redding and his team have made recommendations for prioritization. Again, we have to operate under the concepts that while we would love to do everything in one shot, and we should do everything in one shot, I want to be very clear about that. It will always cost us, it will always be more cost effective to mobilize once and do the whole project in one shot. Okay, so I'm going to use very round numbers just to tell the story. But let's say that we were proposing a $9 million roof job on a 3-level roof. You would think, well, we could do 3 million at a time, right? 3 million for one level, 3 million for this, and it doesn't work that way. Every cost goes up if you segment it. So when we talk about the cost of this project, I want you to just keep that in mind. What you're gonna see is, again, the steel level on the 3rd floor. This is the yellow level. This is priority 3 because the steel itself is in the best shape of our roofing materials. When we asked them to give us a prioritization of levels 1 and 2, he called them priority 1, priority 2, but he said in the narrative, it's 1 and 1A. And the only difference is that the cafeteria, this little purple set, the kitchen cafeteria area isn't as bad as everything else. But the trade-off on that is it shares the same roof with the auditorium. The auditorium, on the flip side of that coin, unfortunately, was deemed not safe to occupy. And it's because the ceiling system directly over the seating area has been compromised very similarly to the gypsum deck above it. And so what that ceiling system has, it's not drop ceiling like this, in this room or in all of our classrooms, it is a plaster ceiling that is reinforced with the same type of chicken wire that the gypsum is. And that plaster is separating from the metal. So what you've seen in those areas that we have covered by plastic is the plaster just getting wet and separating from the mesh that supports it. And we cannot say that more of it's not going to come down. And so it's not safe to put people in that audience. The stage right now is still usable, but it can't have a performance with no audience.
Right.
And so for these reasons, the auditorium has been taken out of service until further notice, because we just can't make it safe to occupy.
So what happens if, we get a big rain in a week and the ceiling comes down over the cafeteria? So we can we have the kids here without having, it's the only place we can cook, right?
Well, no, we do have the ability to cook in the other kitchens, but you have to understand that the majority of our food is housed here. Our freezers, our, larger refrigerator is all in this building. And this is where it is moved from every morning. One of John's, facilities men comes and takes a truckload to each of the buildings for service. And the majority of, prep is done in this kitchen.
And if we had to move that, can we move it?
Space.
We had a meeting just again this morning, and we've been meeting with our operations team, Mr. Mullins, Ms. Wilcox, our school lunch director. They are looking into options for piecemeal relocation, because as Caroline just said, dry storage is the most critical factor for this building. This building also has one of the only food warmers that we have. So it becomes, it's a multi-layered issue, and Caroline's really given us a lot of tools to work with our leadership team to figure out what we know, what we don't know, what we need to figure out. But one of the issues with food service and specifically is all of the storage in this building between refrigeration and dry storage would have to be moved, and we don't have a clear-cut place to put it at this time. We'd have to find a home for that food. But also taking this kitchen out of play means practically doubling the output the necessary output capacity of another kitchen. And
But that, so, and I mean, these are like sentences for the feedback. You know, we have already lost the ceiling in the auditorium. It is unsafe to occupy. On the same floor is the cafeteria kitchen. And, you know, that if that fails, we have, I don't know, we have no ability, or we have to find someplace to put food.
Well, and then if you're scattered multiple places, you need additional resources.
Yeah, a different structure of
Yes,
staff.
yes.
we have to move bodies.
Yes.
Yes. And I think
Also,
that
do
we
you
all have.
plan to feed all the kids, if stuff's all over the
Yeah.
place?
Well, I mean, so I just wanna say a couple of things. One thing we absolutely know is with every storm, rain and or snow for the next few months, the conditions are going to worsen, right? Once water finds its way in, it's very hard to prevent further damage. So that's one thing. The other thing is we've been working very diligently, like we had told the board previously, on contingency plans. And as we had said, is it doable? Sure, we can, limp along in the short term, but it is not pretty. It does not look like school as we know it. The buildings will be overcrowded. There will be a negative impact on many of our programs that students are really excited and proud of, and the reasons they come to school. Because as we know, we have shared staff, we have shared spaces, we have staff that's staggered in buildings so that they can share space. All of those things become really problematic once we're condensed into any of the buildings. So we've been looking at it, and we hear remote, we talk about remote, it's the last thing on earth we want to do, right? So we will do everything we can before that. But if any of those worst case scenarios happens, it's going to be sad, because it's not going to look anything like school as we know it.
I would just add to that, this is a complicated project when it's planned properly.
Yeah.
Right, so when we're looking at this structural assessment, this engineering and architectural assessment is informing the best case scenario plan, and that's still messy and uncomfortable. Right, everything that she said applies to a planned project. And then you add the variable of, we had a massive storm that just wiped out 4 classrooms on the middle level, and now we don't have an option, we have to do level 2 first. And all those wonderful plans that we very strategically implemented to work through this construction phasing just got blown up, and our costs did too. So we want to be very clear about this, is even in the best case scenario, this is a process. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of movement. And if we don't address it proactively and we have to react to a catastrophic failure, this gets all kinds of extra messy.
Elliot, before you move on, 2 questions. So the auditorium out of commission until further notice, does that mean until there's a new roof
I can't,
on that space? Or is there a way, or is there some
I don't know that we
remediation of
can
the
really even
ceiling.
say.
Okay, but it
A
could be,
new roof, and like, we don't really even know what exactly needs to be done at this moment to make that.
Yeah.
Occupiable.
the ceiling has been rendered. items. And like Caroline said, the new roof isn't gonna fix the ceiling. And so one of the things that I added to my report that you'll see in the capital section is the project budget has gone up since our last meeting.
sure, sure.
And the reason for that is exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
The ceiling system in the auditorium was not part of the original budget, nor was replacing large sections of gypsum roof deck.
Okay.
And they have to be addressed now.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that the board needs to consider, and I know a couple of board members have asked for updated financials. Our financial planners are working on the figures that have been generated since December 27th. So really, in the last 2 weeks, we've mobilized the entire project team to update all of our data based on specifically this condition assessment.
Right. And then you mentioned 4 classrooms that were disrupted. Are those not in service?
So that was a hypothetical.
Oh,
That was a
okay.
hypothetical.
Well, I remember there were
We do
some,
have a couple
there were
of
some.
classrooms.
We still have,
leaks.
yes.
Yeah,
And
and we have a
so-
couple of new leaks that have popped up, even with no
Yeah.
precipitation.
And I'll say this, unfortunately, the new leaks are in the priority 3 section. So we're, you know, like when everything's an emergency, nothing's an emergency, right? If we keep putting this off,
Sure.
even our phasing plan is gonna get compromised, because the better areas are the ones that are now leaking. Which just means that once the roofing material is replaced, that doesn't need a deck as long as the tectum or the steel stays solid. But if it's further damaged over longer periods of time, we may have to adjust those prioritizations.
So roofing for dummies. You roof and then there's decks and then there's space and then there's the ceiling, like. If we had to explain to somebody, we could say like, we just thought we needed a new roof and that was X dollars. We are now realizing that what failed on the roof has trickled down into the ceilings.
Well, I think we did, like, I think we need to be clear, we did only need it. But as Chris said, this conversation started 2 years ago,
Right,
well, 3
okay.
years ago in the planning process, but 2 years ago, right, in terms of prioritization and scope. And now we're in a situation where, you know, minor roof leaks have become major roof leaks, have become saturation with water, have become damaging what is in between the roof and the ceiling. So
Okay.
similar in your home, you have a roof, right? You might have an attic, but you have a roof and then there's materials in between, and then you look up and see your ceiling inside, right? Those materials in between, at that point in time, were not damaged. They are damaged now in many areas of the building, some worse than others, right? And so the costs are increasing. That's only going to get worse with more rainfall, with snow, with melt off and the spring kind of thing. So that's what I think people really need to understand. We were in a different situation
Okay.
2 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying. I just wanted to clarify and.
Yep.
And this is a crazy, crazy question, and I think we talked about it last meeting, and I know you're in the middle of your presentation. Is there any way to, you know, put a big tent over, or, you know how they wrap ships or boats and like, is there any, I'm trying to think outside the
So-
box, any way to somehow,
There's-
because even if we do get this passed, we still have another year or two.
Well,
Get the
and that's
work
the
done.
point. So to answer your question, right, we have, if you wanna think about it in very simple terms. Waterproof layer, structural layer, insulation, ceiling. Those are the 4 layers, all right? Like Caroline said, the first budget proposition was just the waterproof layer. But with everything that's damaged all the way through, the
Right.
structural layer is what's been
Right.
compromised. That's the biggest concern, right? The thing that keeps everything held together, that's what's falling apart.
Okay.
We have 80,000 square feet of roof. Anything that you try to put up there to be waterproof is gonna have to have gaps and seams and layers and have drains, and you're gonna, there's way more complications to adding more waterproofing on top of the failed waterproofing, when the biggest concern now is the structural that's underneath it, and we don't wanna add weight on top of
Right.
it, that's gonna put more pressure on the structural part that can cause harm to our occupants inside.
But we haven't had any floor tiles left up.
But we have, not since the last one, but
Well,
in December, we had floor tiles popping.
If they're asbestos tiles, I don't know.
No, so the ones that we had were in the hallway. Looks like water came down in the wall.
Down through the wall.
Yeah, and it was like right at the seam of the wall and the floors. We had a couple of tiles pop, but we had them tested and they were not asbestos containing.
We have not had, but to that point, could it happen? If it happens in a different room that has asbestos containing material in the flooring, then yes, that could also take that room out of play and trigger an emergency abatement. which-
And we know, I mean, Elm, I think it was Elm. We had floor tiles there that were asbestos.
You have them here too. We do have them, it's just whether or not they've been disturbed.
The 2 areas in this building were the newer tiles. There's a lot of the other areas in this hallway here, the other old tiles that we know are asbestos.
And, you know, unfortunately, 2.5 years ago, replacing all of the asbestos floor tiles was part of our beautification proposal, and that's been let go to, you know, as well, just because it's, as long as it's not disturbed, it's not hazardous. But with related damages, there can be disruptions that can then disturb it, and then it becomes a problem. So, I just wanted to share that information, and then again, just remind the board that the figures have changed. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I do want to reference that sheet, and I Want to keep that. While I look for it. So with the current, again, I want to be tactful with how we present it. Our total roof work for the middle school is now projected to be north of $8 million with the replacement of the auditorium ceiling at about estimated at in excess of $2.5 million. So roofing and ceiling has gone over 10 million just for this building. Those are as up to date projections as we had in the last 2 weeks. So that was, if you remember, we were talking about $4.5 million for the middle school roof previously. And that's why I said that that $7 million increase is reflective of that.
Yeah, there's nothing much we can do about it. Okay,
All right, I will also just, while we're talking about those numbers, you know, I don't wanna give the impression that we keep changing the total, but with every reassessment of our financials, every time the work gets pushed out a full calendar year, there's, industry standard is to add a 5% escalation to your cost estimates. We've asked our architects and engineers to be really conservative with those estimates, but the more conservative we are, the more risk we have in not being able to finish the work.
And is that just because of, we know costs, like, why is that, like,
It's just delay, right? So right now, New York State Education.
costs are gonna go
Department-
up?
Yeah, costs go up. Right now, state ed is at a 41-week backlog for project review, so we do know that they've added the third-party review process back. That was gone for a couple of years. Unfortunately, some of the work that we need to do does not qualify for third-party review, which means there's aspects of our project which will still have to go into the general queue. But you're looking at a 10-month lead time for review. So even with a positive May vote, the odds of us being able to do major construction in summer of 26 is aggressive and limited, right? That would mean getting all of the design work up to Albany and back within 8-10 months, and then getting it out to bid and contractors scheduling work now for summer of 25. So, you know, we're conservatively, I'll say no, we're aggressively 2 years out, conservatively 3 years out from actually affecting the repairs that get authorized in the May vote. So, like we said before, these are all best case scenario proposals, but we're still gonna have to figure out how to make things work for 2 years before we start turning screws in the building.
Worst case scenario, if the vote does pass, we can use the funds that we have if it's desperately needed.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for reminding me. We have been in touch with New York State Education Department's financial planners. We've talked to our financial planner, we've talked to the Office of Facilities Planning, and I talked to the state aid director. And yes, Chris, with a positive vote, we can release our capital reserve funds and we can bond, and we can issue bonds to cover the work. So like, people have asked, we have $12 million in reserve, what should we use it? Can't use it without authorization.
Okay.
But what we could do is with a catastrophic failure, the board can declare a local emergency by resolution and expedite that process.
With a positive. vote.
With
With a positive vote.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
yes,
Only,
yes.
only with a positive vote.
Yeah.
Without a positive vote, the district can only use cash on hand. That is not locked in reserves.
Mhm.
So again, as a reminder, I just told you that this roof is gonna cost you roughly $10.5 million, maybe 11. And our unassigned fund balance is capped at about $1.3 million, right? 4% of 35 million. And we have right now another $1 million in cash that we have to put somewhere, but that means that you're talking about $2 million on an $11 million project,
Plus it leaves us nothing.
and it wipes us out. Which means a kid that needs a special program in an offsite location, we wouldn't have the money for it.
So
So-
without a, oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think part of like our information sheet or something should be, in my opinion, yes, we have $12 million in reserves and we can't use it without a positive vote. You voters have to give us the yes, the go ahead to use it. Well, you know, what if I get, why can't you just move it into cash? Like, I think that's another thing that we need to, I need to be able to explain, like, because I don't know. if I were not here, I don't know that I would know that, and I would probably ask, well, just you move the money, put it in cash so we can use this, you can use it, so I think that's something we need to.
That's really important, and
Being
people
able
need
to
to know that this is
explain
the
it.
state protecting the taxpayers' money,
Yeah.
right? The state
Not everything
says,
is the tax.
And that's a great way to put it.
if the state's gonna allow us to, because if you remember, right, we just talked about general fund. That money has to be taken in 1 year and spent the next year, right? That it's 1 year turnaround. And to allow us to hold on to taxpayer money more than that 1 year, it has to go into a reserve. That means that the voters authorize us to save it, and then they have to authorize us to spend it. It's really the government protecting the taxpayers' money.
It's also important to point out, kind of, these are estimates, and once we get the vote, then we go out to bid, and then we get the
Yes.
actual numbers, and there's a process involved in that. So a lot of people are like, where are you getting those numbers? It seems astronomical. Well, you know, these are the going rates as far as what they're going for, but they are estimates.
Yeah, and again, to your point, Chris, the reason why I took the spreadsheet, I stopped sharing my screen and took the spreadsheet down is because we don't want to share publicly the details of these estimates, because we don't want to prejudice the bids.
Sure.
Right? We're putting projects out to bid with the hope of getting the best qualified lowest bidder.
Right.
And if people know to the penny what we have to spend, guess where all those bids are coming in?
Sure.
Right at that penny, right? So we're not trying to hide anything from the community. We're being very open with the general budget construction. But we want to protect the district's interests to the extent possible and keep some of those details to ourselves, because again, they're based on projections, and what you just saw in the last 2 weeks is the evolution of that process. We estimated an 80,000 square foot roof costs X dollars per square foot. Here's $4.5 million. Once we start peeling back the layers, quite literally, we're finding that it's gonna cost more.
And so with a positive vote, if we have to replace the roof like very soon, or there's an emergency, it's deemed imminent, when could that work start? In the summer?
So the state is very, prescribed with how that process works. We would be engaging the state education department, Office of Facilities Planning to help us, but it would be as soon as possible. But they would actually partner with us. We'd be on the phone, we'd be giving them the plans directly, like there may be somebody driving to Albany, like, here's the set of plans, and we're gonna do everything we can, and they do move rather quickly. But there's process involved, the board has to declare an emergency. It's a legal matter, right? You have to get the lawyers involved, they write the resolution, you vote on it, you pass it, assuming you would pass it. Then we engage state ed. We have to mobilize the architects and engineers. As a reminder for the board and for anybody watching, less than 10% of the actual design work happens pre-referendum. So once we have a positive vote, the architects and engineers start literally drawing every page of every proposed plan for construction. That takes a time and energy and resources. So we're not ready to submit after the positive vote. It may take the entirety of the summer until September, October, before those plans are ready for presentation to the state. And what the review process is, I don't know that we've ever gone into that level of detail, but the state has their own architects and engineers who take our architects and engineers' plans. They're reviewing them, kind of a check and balance system to make sure that they meet all the safety regulations, expectations, and protocols that we need. And quite often they have notes, and they go back to our firm, and they get updated and resubmitted and re-reviewed. Once they bless it, then we can put it out to bid, as Chris said before. Then it goes out to bid. There's a mandatory window for bidding. So even when everything's firing on all cylinders, there's a significant amount of lead time, even in an emergency.
Can you validate the order that has to happen? I'm imagining there's a very good likelihood we'll have a situation where the school's closed, at least for a couple of days due to serious rainfall between now and May. If we were to hypothetically declare an emergency earlier, use cash on hands to design plans, start getting it approved, and be up to the bidding process, that would be acceptable and speed up the timeline for replacement.
I don't know to what extent it would speed up the time for replacement, only because what we're proposing is a newly designed roof, and an emergency has to be a replacement in kind. And so it may actually cause a double expense if we try to declare the emergency before the vote.
Yeah.
We may end up spending more money because we'll have to put it back together the way it was and then redesign it and rebuild. That happens a lot, just so you know, the example that the state always gives is like, heating plants,
Yeah.
like your boilers went bad. You wanna convert to hot water, no, you have to fix the steam boiler or get a new steam one.
Can you find out for sure if replacement kind literally means replace gypsum with gypsum or replacement kind in a situation like this would be an equivalent, not exact?
The way that, I will check into it, the way that was explained to me is assuming that it's still permissible to build it the way it was built, they want you to build it that way. But I will ask him, I don't know if gypsum is,
I understand, but to me, that may mean you have a flat roof, you replace it with a flat roof of standard design for the
Yeah.
time. As opposed to you want to put in a vaulted roof.
yeah, we can check it today.
Yeah, it's worth asking because if it's possible to design it ahead of time under an emergency, that could shave months.
But again, remember, the other factor for us here, based on our, packaged project, is that we would be adding HVAC equipment to the roof that requires a redesign, structural redesign as well. So that wouldn't be admissible under an emergency regulation. And so those areas would have to be redone.
Again,
We gotta balance the timeline though, because it has the potential to affect the kids being in the school.
Oh, for sure. I'm just, that was just the caveat when we were looking at this, that did come up with the architects, but they said that part of their proposed design is gonna have a lot more structural steel to support equipment up there that doesn't get there, not living up there right now. So it's another factor.
And the HVAC is that gonna be included in our whole number? It's gonna be roof and ceiling and.
Right now, that's really all the work that we're proposing
and
is
HVAC and- Okay.
heating and ventilating and structural. We stripped everything else out other than the ADA.
that's not included in the number you just gave.
Oh, no, the number I just gave was just the roof.
That's not.
Right, no, but I mean, when we,
In the
what
total
we're
scope of the
thinking now,
project, yeah.
for whether it's prop one, it's gonna be that number plus whatever the HVAC is, plus the ADA for downstairs.
And window?
And
That's what we currently have.
Okay, right.
Post-scope, yes.
And do we have element to?
Right now, we have the financial planners updating the figures for all of the scope proposed in November. We wanted to give the board updated numbers for everything we asked for in November, so that the board can make a determination on whether or not to propose all or some of it.
So when do we want to shoot to make that decision by?
I hope to have that information in the next couple of days, in the next week, so.
The next board
If I
meeting,
can, I
hopefully?
can bring it to the next board meeting if we have the financials and the board meeting decision. If there's any delay, then it would be the first meeting of February.
Yeah, I think the next board meeting is,
28.
it's this week, yeah, so got a little extra time. Okay, any other questions?
Did you finish, Elliot? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, this is a chance to talk to you guys. You tell me if there's anything else you want me to tell.
I would just like to echo your sentiment in here to thank you, facilities department, for basically holding everything together. Thanks, kids. That's, you guys are really doing a great job and we're very thankful.
Next is Alicia.
Good evening. I am just going to ask that you refer to my agenda that I put in, so I can just highlight some of the important things. So for curriculum updates, as an admin team, we have been focusing on habitudes, which are the 7 habits that help create successful learners, successful people. So each month, we've been focusing on a different habitude, and then the teachers are then focusing on that in the classrooms. Ms. Quattrone went to classrooms to do lessons on self-awareness last month, and I actually did lessons yesterday and today, and we'll be doing them throughout the week. And we have two staff members who've been Orton Gillingham trained, and we have 2 additional teachers who will be, so all of our staff will have been trained. We are all up to date with safety drills. I have been sending out a safety tip of the day connected to my daily emails to my staff, with just little tidbits of updates. And some special highlights. The Parents' Night Out was a huge success. There were 71 students from both Elm and Alden. It was a really wonderful time. I want to thank Megan Riddle, our ENL teacher, because she took a lot of time labeling throughout Elm Drive. We have labels in English, Spanish, and visual, which just helps to support language acquisition for our ENL students. And I'm really looking forward to the next Collin Small Ball, which is February 13th. Be my Valentine. If anyone has any other questions about anything on the report?
Question?
Thank you.
No, thank you. The, how many do we have in pre-K right now?
We currently have 22. 23.
Two.
23.
Two classes. I mean.
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
Anything else? Okay. Facilities.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's gonna make this quick. Got any questions on the other things on the board report? Maintenance staff has been performing inspections on all rooftops, drains weekly, and as well as, prior to any inclement weather. So if you know rain, snow's coming in beforehand, you get up there, we check the drains to make sure none's blocking away, so no puddling up on roofs. And then the following day, you check the buildings thoroughly, going through every room, every classroom, file rooms, closets, bathrooms. And really keeping a log of any new leaks, and so. That's what's going on. All that water testing has been completed and necessary remediations are continuing. We have been replacing failed.
That outlets.
Yeah, the failed outlets, and the ones that are gonna retest it, and all they pass, so that's a good thing, so. That's about it, you know, the data is being submitted to the appropriate reporting agency, so. Got any questions on anything?
So you guys are going through every building, every nook and cranny. Every day?
And,
How long does
well,
that,
going to, with rain or snow on the roof, we go up weekly as it is in our preventive maintenance logbook, so we check that off every week. If you know it's gonna rain, we get up there again, make sure the drains are clear. And then we go through the building. The middle school, we go through every single day, this building here. Because this is the main problems. We got 2 weeks at Alden. A couple weeks at the high school, nothing major. But this building has gotta be checked every single morning. I'm here at 5 in the morning, so I go to the main offices at 5.
And when it's
that's
raining and
secure.
or snowing, John is here at 4, before 4.
With snow and stuff like that, you know, if I wasn't here at 5. On the weekend, we're here, checking everything. Coming on a Saturday, just to check the offices and file rooms.
Plus, John is manually operating all of our heating and ventilation systems because our controls are outdated and obsolete, so. Big thank you to John and his team, because when nobody signs up for the overtime, John's the guy in the building. 3, 4 AM.
Just want to make sure the kids get to school.
Appreciate it, John.
how many hours, or how long does that take you to check all the buildings just for the roofing issue?
This building here takes you a good solid hour, 15, 20 minutes. I mean, walking every area, you gotta go to the kitchen, you gotta walk all over to the kitchen. Cafeteria. Bathrooms, you gotta go to bathrooms, you gotta check the thorough building check.
Just-
You gotta look up, you gotta look down on the wall, go out, and go down the wall, inside the wall, come out on the floor. So they ain't just looking up, okay, the ceiling's intact, you gotta do a thorough walkthrough. So. We find the leaks, and we have a data, we have a spreadsheet with it, so we keep it up to date, how many hours we track and everything, so. How much we're spending on materials, man hours.
You still have the, at one point you said you heard water running in the wall.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that was down at L, so keeping a constant eye on that,
Okay,
so.
That was during the bad range for that.
Anything else? John?
Thank you, John.
All right,
Go ahead.
No, I'll be back at 5 in the morning.
you, John.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. I don't eat any more sugar.
So the yellow paper is the summary. Of the information that was pulled. From the documents that the firm sent us. The first page is more about the financial information. And then that second grouping is what's included in the retainer fee and then what's not. So both are there.
We can ask of
What's that, Chris?
retainer hours, what we are usually average. Is that something that
I was gonna ask you.
we can find out or discuss? I don't know if that's.
I think part of the big issue with comparing it though is that for different firms, they include different things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
There's one that has a lot less retainer hours, but their fee is less, so it's tricky. So if you're not getting a lot of retainer hours, that might be
Right,
appealing.
there's some other firms that include like everything, and then there's some that include
Right.
Okay.
some things, but not this. So it's like, I don't know that there's a real mechanism for, without going like hour
Line
by
by-
hour, line by line on our bills and saying this would be, wouldn't be kind of
I
thing.
get you.
It's
Yeah.
hard to say.
I don't know how it's calculated, but Shaw doesn't charge us for clerks and paralegals. The other ones, I think they're, no, no.
They do. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it's just a flat 240.
except for
Oh, yeah, there it is.
kiosks, I don't know, is that in there?
It looks like it's a flat 240.
Is there any, like, I'm just looking as far as like where these firms are, is there any reason to not hire someone that's, the Latham, Farmingdale, Westchester, like is proximity a big issue? I think that's one thing I was thinking of.
Well, I'm assuming they charge us for the drive here and the drive.
And they might also have offices that are closer.
I was just figuring where the offices, it says office locations, like one of them, we've got Poughkeepsie, then we've got Hopewell, then we have Fishkill, but then the last one is just Latham, Farmingdale, and Westchester, so that was my only
Yeah.
thing, I just wanted to.
And I think,
And in their, in the, presentations that they submitted, it does say if they charge for travel or any of those types of expenses, so all of that is in there. What I tried to, read out for you was what's in the retainer and what's not in the retainer.
The majority of the business that we
Right.
do is by phone, email.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's
much
not over.
virtual now. I mean, it's rare that they're, that they have to be here on campus
Yeah.
or something, but. I mean, I think it's a good question.
And so we're planning to do the interviews on the 28th. So, we have to think about how long you want to spend with each firm. How that interview time is gonna be. And so how that impacts when we start our meeting on the 28th. And, you know, if you're comfortable with the information that I provided, or if you know, if you guys are seeing something that you want included, then just let me know and then I can add it. And then, you know, do you wanna have a subcommittee who forms the questions for the interview? Or do you want to, meet, do a workshop meeting as a board and come up with your questions for your interviews? But we certainly don't want to talk about that in public session.
Right.
So we need to make those decisions tonight so that we can move forward with those interviews on the 28th. So that grouping of highlighted things that I have in the administrative content on the board agenda. And do you want to bring in all four firms?
Well, that's the last time, I think, when we were doing. What was the last interview stuff we did, and the auditors. I think we cut the 4 to 2. And then just based on our.
Yeah, that was there too.
Yeah, we had a couple.
Yeah, I think it's cut from 4 to 2, but we don't have to, I mean, honestly, it's, you know, unless we ask a lot of questions. Doing a 15-minute each. Interview.
I was thinking 15, 20 minutes.
Yes.
Get 5 or 6 questions.
Yeah.
Give them the backstory of themselves, we ask the question.
I give yourself 30 minutes.
Each.
Yeah.
Just-
No, I mean 30 minutes for each firm.
Yeah,
Not
for each firm.
Not each.
Oh my God.
I got what you're saying.
You're funny. Yes, I think so. Well, for questions, I think it could go two ways, either people send questions to the subcommittee, and then the subcommittee sort of, there's gonna be several that could be turned into one, right? And then we all take a look at them and where we sort of approve them.
Yes, so you wouldn't be able to.
You can't do that outside of,
No, because you can't conduct your business via email. So we have to either have a meeting and you can discuss and figure out how you're proceeding, which would be a workshop. It's not open to the public.
right,
Or you assign a committee and let them decide what those questions are gonna be.
but we could bring, I know we can't email, could we generate questions and give them to the committee?
At a meeting.
And it can be done in executive.
But our
session,
next meeting
too,
is
which
the
I'm not saying
28th.
It's going to happen,
So,
Well, exactly.
but I think
So,
outside
right,
the committee,
there
I
would
think
have to be-
Caroline and Elliot would have probably very good questions.
Yes.
So I'd want them to be involved, so we can do
right,
an
but they
executive.
could be on
right?
your committee.
That's
Right.
true, too.
Yes, they can be on our.
Yeah, we could
Oh,
do,
workshop.
Do a workshop.
on the 28th, we could do 5 to 7 as a workshop.
When are we planning
Oh,
on interviewing?
no, no,
That's the
that's
problem.
when we're interviewing.
Oh, okay. I guess we
You
don't.
know,
need to
I would, personally, I'd want them to come in and say, tell me what your strengths and weaknesses are for, you know, school board or school district law. And then have a couple questions that, focus.
Yeah,
on-
exactly.
Giving them hints. Yeah.
No, yeah, Carrie.
Chat about this in executive
Right.
tonight quickly,
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
maybe?
Yes. Cause like, you know.
yeah, detailed things you would wanna do in exec, but the things that I framed out in that
Right.
admin section, we can kind of drill down. And figure out how we wanna go. I mean, like your start time of your meeting. If you're gonna do a half an hour for each. That's 2 hours just in interviews.
And the
Is that-
interviews are not in public session?
Yeah.
The interviews are not in public session. I'm only asking because if we interview four, the last three are gonna see what we asked in the first.
Right. So I actually haven't done the interview process before. And I
I
don't
think we did with the other firms. We did it with other, like when we did architects and auditors, we had an interview committee. And then the finalists came to the full board. And did presentations, if you remember.
Right, and that's where
But
that.
we narrowed
And they
it.
didn't sit in on the
Nope,
other
the
ones.
interview, right, and the interview committee narrowed it down from however many to, I think it was what, 3 when we did
Reconnect them.
architect.
We did the interviews over Zoom, like, right?
We did the first day round.
Right.
Well, so you guys feel comfortable with, yeah, putting a small committee of people together to weed through this, make sure they understand what we want to see on the 28th.
I'm assuming it's gonna be us three since we just threw those three there.
If we only knew some attorneys that
Oh,
might
that's
have
true,
some
yeah.
questions.
Well, we also,
All right,
let's
you
not
can
forget
take us
Helen.
on it. All right.
Yeah,
We'll just make you work a little bit on the,
Dina and Howard, they can.
Dina and Howard, that's all.
oh, Howard.
The subcommittee meeting to do interview questions could also take place via. Yeah, we can meet. Yeah.
do we wanna do a subcommittee or do we wanna just do an executive where we all get to, like, do we wanna?
You could do a workshop meeting.
Yeah. I think the people who would be on the subcommittee would have to agree to be on the subcommittee.
Right.
That might be
As long as
That-
workshop. Workshop can't be.
That's a very good question.
It's
It's
not
not public.
So if we got.
It's not public.
You gotta be food for everybody. And then
I can get you cookies.
Good
cookies.
As long as it's not doing length. Aren't they coming in?
Yeah, I am. Check cookies.
Have you told them like when to be here?
No, we didn't. So we needed to figure out what time to start the interview process and then I would give slots to each firm. So,
I guess we made a light agenda night. It could be a light.
Make sure they're all available on the 28th, right? Yeah, I think they're, you have to all be on it.
Good, well, I mean, I know I can't ask him because he's not here, but I think Howard should be on that committee.
We can do it Zoom. I mean, just.
Well, yeah, that's.
Or we could do
Are
a
we doing a
workshop.
committee or are we doing? a
Whoever can make
workshop?
it, makes it.
Yep.
If we could do it
Workshop.
Zoom, I would say workshop.
Yeah, let's do a
Then
workshop.
if 5 of us can make it, we can all make it.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
have a-
Okay,
all right,
three of
so
us make it.
I'll send out, something with some dates. And you will all let me know what's the best date and time for you.
A doodle.
Yeah, I'll do a doodle.
Just say all like that. You all.
All, you're gonna let us know.
Who did she look at when she?
Exactly.
So, we'll do that way. And then what time do you want to start the meeting? On the 28th, Perry? Do you want to start interviews at 5?
that's what I was thinking,
I
but
think so.
can everybody get here by 5?
28, yeah, on the 28.
I can.
I'll check my calendar, I'll say yes.
Yeah, I know.
Get here at 5?
Yeah,
Is it possible?
that's what
I could be here at 5.
And present, well, it depends on if they want to have everybody.
5:30. I mean, it depends. If we decide we're gonna meet with 3, I could change that too.
Right,
You can write it down too and make it.
all right. Anything else on that? Agenda items, you guys know that.
Let me just make sure we went over all of those things. Okay,
Right?
Yep.
Next is, public comment, question? All right. What's that?
where,
I just happened to go on, just.
where?
Is there a question?
You don't have a question. Where are you seeing that? I don't see a question.
Maybe it's, oh, yeah, Chris has it on his.
Is that-
It
is that
says, is
on
there,
YouTube?
is there emergency funding?
Where are you seeing that?
I clicked on the live chat, the only thing that's sitting there.
Oh,
Live chat, live.
Like in the chat.
yeah, so we have a question attached to the district.
Oh, I see that.
Okay, we don't do that.
We should see if we can turn that.
So you don't
video off.
address the questions that are posted on the live chat? I mean, I think we answered it, but
Attached
we're
to our
live, so they
YouTube
could, yeah.
channel.
Because I'm in here, but I didn't get into the, okay.
All right. So next is, proposal for executive session, I think.
Future agenda items, if you see those.
Yeah.
Is it an agreement that we don't address live chat questions? I mean, the name's there and everything. I don't want to leave someone.
Yeah,
If I can access it, I can try and contact them. Yeah.
Well, the question's there and the name is there. So what more would you need? I'm just curious.
Because we typically,
So we do it through a Google Sheet on the
They're
website.
giving approval.
Right,
to
like
ask
you
the
happened
question.
to go to that and look at it and really it should have been closed off, but if you didn't look at it for whatever reason, we wouldn't even know about it.
But
Not
also
that we
remember
should.
that for a public question and or comment, unless it's like specific misinformation, we typically wouldn't answer it in public session.
So if someone just trips over the, oh, the board meeting's tonight and they hit the live thing, where do they know how to submit a question?
It's on our website on the,
I know, but what if
Attached
they
to
just
the
went right
board
to
meeting.
YouTube and they just pulled up Millbrook board meetings, they wouldn't know.
no, you have to go to our website, yeah.
Well, we need to kill that.
Chris, can you
Yeah,
see-
Sean's gonna do that.
See who it is, so can.
I can see who it is, but it just asks if there's any emergency funding. I mean, I think Elliot covered that technically, but I don't know when it was asked or anything else, but that's all. I mean, it's,
And there's no outside emergency funding if that's the question.
right, there's no outside emergency funding and in order
Like
for
from
us to use our
state.
funds, we need a vote, yes.
All right, just so that we're about to go into executive session, so that everybody in the audience and online understand. Just because we go to executive session, it doesn't end the meeting. When we come back, we may have actions to take based on the discussion in executive session. So with that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right. Anybody?